going to ask you some questions just to start off. We were talking
Okay.
about maybe learning a language in the classroom or learning a language out in the real world. I'm not a classroom guy myself, which sounds weird because I'm a teacher, but as a teacher, I like the classroom. But as a learner, I'm not a big fan of the classroom. I don't like it that much. I don't like being in a classroom of 15 or 20 other learners with one person explaining to all of us. It's not my thing. But what's your opinion on it?
So first of all, I'm totally with you on that. I've never been the model student, but if I can find interest, I can pull it out. But I understand why and how the classroom setting can be beneficial, especially when you're starting out. Because now that I'm a bit older and wiser and more patient, I realized that there were some fundamental building blocks of just learning a language that benefit from being delivered in a more structured and organized environment. You're learning about how to structure a language, and doing that within a structured environment, I think, can sometimes benefit certain learners. If I had to tell myself, like, all right, I need to sit down and learn 15 verbs, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
Never.
right.
but but if I had to be in a classroom, I would. And so at the end of the day, if the information gets to you somehow, however that is, then, but I understand that people, I don't know.
Well, can you think of a particular example of a moment in a classroom where you had this like, oh, I get it now.
uh,
I'm so glad I came here today.
yeah. With some things, yes. But again, it all depends on your resources and what's available to you. Like, for example, when learning in a classroom, you are around other learners, and usually somewhere within your curriculum, there's some sort of reading out loud or discussion with another classmate, and having that practice to actually speak what's written down. If you're not in an environment where you can do that, if you're learning on your own, if that practical experience isn't available to you, being in a classroom setting can help give you the structure to access that. So I get it. I get that. But that's sort of a specific circumstance we're talking about. I think we're saying the same thing, that like I would much prefer to be out in the world and speaking to somebody and having that experience to build my vocabulary. Like the
Right.
classroom is not where I'm going to like build memory,
Yeah.
that I can like refer back to. It's just there to like kind of get information. But if you're not, say you're learning French and there's no one in your community that speaks French and you're not in a French speaking country, how else are you going to practice than if you go to a classroom?
Yeah, it's hard. And where do you find the motive to do it?
Right.
I think I don't know if I mentioned to you last week that I was interested in just trying to learn Chinese to see if I could,
Uh-huh.
which is kind of how Spanish started out. But my issue is where am I going to find my motive for it? I've got to find something beyond it to latch onto. I mean, there are
Yeah.
certain aspects of Chinese that could be just kind of like getting a big puzzle out and putting pieces together and fine, right? But you get to a point where it's why am I doing it? Why do I keep trying to do it? And so there's got to be something
Mm.
more than just for the sake of doing it. And you were young when you started learning French. Was that the only thing that you had? Was the class, or was there something outside of class when you were younger that really motivated you to want to know French?
Yeah. So when I was about 7 or 8, I learned French starting around that age, and we're not French at all. I don't live in a French speaking culture. I had almost zero reference to the language. And then when I was about 7 or 8, my parents would sign us up for a YMCA class after school. During the summertime, we get to pick what our activity would be. And there's like a huge catalog of all the things that you can choose from, like gymnastics or, dance classes or, a basketball team. And I chose French. And my parents like, are you sure? Why would you do that? You're a kid. You don't want to play him over there? No, I wanted to learn French because my aunt and uncle, they were going on a vacation to Martinique or Guadeloupe somewhere. I don't remember exactly. But I do remember that they were taking French classes at night. And when we'd be over the house in a gathering, they would practice their phrases back and forth. And I thought it was the coolest thing. I mean, I hadn't fully wrapped my head around the fact that there could be more than one language. So that's when I started. And it was just a little classroom setting for kids. So there was nothing structured about it. We just played games and card games, or we would use letters and numbers in French and colors and things like that. And it was my first exposure to the language. And I think it was really useful as I developed to just sort of have that exposure, those neural pathways sort of carved out to help me gain more interest as I got older to learn more.
Yeah. Do you remember if your classmates, the kids who were the same age as you roughly, who were learning, were they just as fascinated by it as you were?
I have zero recollection.
Yeah. I don't remember much either that time.
Of that. I don't know if I like grabbed my mom by the collar and was like, I must learn French. You know, it wasn't like a calling, but it was just like, yeah, I don't know. It's fun.
Yeah.
I think it goes back. I was remembering this story right now as we're talking, and I've never correlated the two, but I wonder if like this earlier childhood trauma sort of motivated this decision that I made to take French classes a few years later. And it happened when I was about around 4 or 5 years old. And on my mom's side, my grandfather's from Sweden. So they went to a Swedish Lutheran church. And I had just learned how to read. And at the church, the Santa Lucia Fest for Christmas time, and the girl that gets to play the saint that wears like the crown with the candles and the gown and stuff, she has to sing a song in Swedish. So other girls that were trying out were around my age and a little older, but they all came from families that spoke Swedish.
Uh-huh.
I didn't understand that somebody had asked me like, oh, can you read Swedish? And I was like, yeah, I can read. And I didn't understand that I had just learned how to read, and I didn't know that you like, but learning how to read English, I couldn't just read everything. So, so I got up on stage for the audition, and the pianist is behind me. I get the sheet music with the lyrics, and I freeze because I realize I can't read it.
Yeah.
And so he starts playing, and I just look out, and nothing happens. And so they stop, and I was like, that was weird. And I walked off. I don't remember crying or anything. I just was like, I was just really confused. But then like, I remember getting some like weird puritanical lecture about like why lying is a sin. And you can't do that. And I was like, I didn't lie. I was just confused. And my parents brokered the situation really well. I didn't like, and that was it. I just brushed it off. But now looking back, I wonder if a couple of years later, when given this opportunity to learn French, it was like a retribution of sorts.
I don't know.
Right?
I remember talking about lying. I remember, I think I was 18 or 19. I went and applied for a job. It was at a factory. And on the application, it had all these machines that I'd never heard of before. And it said, which of these machines can you run? And so I just checked all of them. My rationale was, if they ask me about these machines and it becomes clear that I don't know anything about them, if they said that I lied, I would just say, well, I didn't lie. You asked, if the question asks, which one could I run? I said, if you show me how to run it, I can run it. So like somebody said, which languages can you speak? I said, well, I guess all of them. I don't know. If I learn how to do it, I can do it. So it's not exactly lying.